Welcome to the Introduction to ArcMap lecture. My name is Stuart Bruce. I'm GIS Program Coordinator at Washington College, and this is Lesson 2 of our GT-101 course, which can be found at geoworkshops.org. Now, as a little bit of review, we talked about this in What is GIS? ArcGIS really has three product levels: ArcView, ArcEditor, and ArcInfo. And within all of these, we share standard user interfaces for all three product levels. We have ArcMap, we have ArcCatalog, and we have ArcToolbox. This lecture and this lesson is really focused on ArcMap. So in ArcMap, you can create and edit data sets, you can display and explore data sets, and you can create map layouts. So really the purpose of this lesson is for you to become familiar with the interface of ArcMap and start feeling comfortable about what some of these tools are, so that when you go into some of the later lessons in the course, you'll know where some of this stuff is and you'll be a little bit more comfortable with it. So just consider this really a grand tour of the ArcMap interface. Now, to get started, anytime you open up ArcMap, you're presented with this dialog box, and I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. So this is standard ArcMap getting started, and you do have some options. One of the probably common ones that you might do is you might start with a blank template. Now, you can start with a blank template or empty map. You can start with an existing template, or you can browse to find a document that you were working on before. Now, if you want to start with a new empty map, you will have an option for new maps, and you can start with a blank map. You can, if you want to, set up some of these templates. I'll talk about that in just a moment. Oops. A template allows you to use a predetermined layout. It can have some of the elements in there, and we'll explore this a little bit when I give the actual live demo of the software. And then finally, you can start with an existing map. So if you have a map that you're working on before, when you open up ArcMap, it will remember probably like the last several documents that you were working on, and you can open that and start right where you left off. Now, what we're looking at here is the main ArcMap interface. At the top, you can see we have a variety of pull-down menus. There are numerous toolbars. Right now, we're just looking at 4 of the toolbars. There's dozens and dozens of toolbars, as I will explain. At the left-hand side of this user interface, we have the table of contents. This is where your data is going to show up, and you can order it, turn things on and off. And then the data frame is where the map actually displays. Now, in regards to pull-down menus, there are a total of 10 different pull-down menus. There's a lot of functionality and tools contained within these menus, and we're going to explore some of them, but we're probably not going to review every single option from every single pull-down menu, because some of them you won't use until you get in some of the later lessons and actually some of our later courses. The standard toolbar is your primary toolbar that you will use. You can see here we've listed some of the options. For example, you can create a new file, open a file, you can save a file, and most importantly is the Add Data button that you see at the bottom of this list. The Tools toolbar, try saying that 10 times fast. These are where you're going to have a lot of your navigational tools like zoom in, zoom out, pan around, things like the Identify button so you can access the information. The select tools, very important tools to use. And we're going to review some of these in this particular lesson. Now, you can arrange your toolbars, you can dock them, and you can undock them. And really, to explain this, it's kind of hard to do from a static slide like this. So I will be covering that in my live demo of ArcMap, which I encourage you to watch before you do the lesson. Now, if you're not sure what a button is, there's a wonderful little button called the What's This button. And if you click that button and then click on any other button, it will tell you what the button does. So this can be helpful when you're just starting out until you memorize what the buttons are. There is an extensive ArcGIS desktop help system, which I even use myself sometimes, although I'm kind of like a guy, we don't ask for directions, so I usually spend about 5 or 10 minutes trying to figure it out on my own, but eventually I will end up at the help. And we're going to review this in the lab exercise. You will have a chance to sort of explore the help menu to try to answer a question that we will pose to you. There are toolbars everywhere. So I talked about the standard toolbar and the tools toolbar, but there are many, many more toolbars. You can pick the toolbars that you want to see. You can turn them on and off. A lot of different things you can do with them. You may, in your GIS career, never use some of these toolbars. I'll be honest with you, I've been doing this for many, many, many years using the ESRI product, and there are some toolbars that I have never actually opened because I never really had a need to use that particular tool. The most important button found on any of these toolbars is the Add Data button. If you don't know how the Add Data button works and you can't add data to ArcMap, then there's really nothing else you can do with the software. So it is the most important button. Now, there's different ways of accessing the Add Data button. What's neat about this software, and I think it's true really with a lot of Windows software, that there are multiple ways that you can execute a tool. So you will find the Add Data button in the Tools toolbar, or excuse me, in the Standard toolbar. You will find the Add Data button in the File pull down, and there's a way that you can use a shortcut key to access it as well. So depending on how you interact with your computer, there's many different ways that you can use the same toolbar or the same tool function. Now, the table of contents, it's kind of like a book. When you add data to ArcMap, this is where the data is going to show up. You can change the order of it. You can turn things on and off. Basically, if you don't see it in the table of contents, it will not be in your map. Now, you can, if you want to, when you're working with the data, you can actually close the table of contents so that you have the map as the biggest part of your screen. Some people accidentally close the table of contents and they call us up on the phone and say, how do I get the table of contents back? So we put this little slide in here so that you would understand that if you go to the Windows pull down menu, there's an option to turn on and turn off the table of contents. Now within the table of contents at the top, you can see here there's a number of different tabs that you can pick. Some of these are kind of new to ArcGIS 10. If you were using ArcGIS 9 before, it's a little bit different. Now, the very first tab, when you click on that, it actually lists everything in the drawing order. So basically, it would have the layer that's drawn on the top as the first layer, and the one on the bottom as the bottom layer. The list by source shows you where the data is actually coming from. So it organized, let's say you're getting 4 or 5 data sets from a single source on your computer or a folder location, it will lump those together. If you have data from another source, as shown in the example here, and I'll make this a little bit bigger, you can see I have data from 2 different sources showing the 2 different actual paths. Now, the only problem about list by source is if you want to move data, for example, change the drawing order, you can't change the drawing order when you have the table of contents in the list by source. You have to go back to the list by drawing order, and then you can rearrange the order. Now, list by visibility, this shows you what's actually on and visible in your data layer. This is actually functionality that I rarely ever use in ArcGIS. List by selection, this can be useful. This actually tells you how many spatial features within a given data layer are selected. So this can be useful to you. It also displays how many are selected in the bottom corner of your screen too. I honestly don't use this too often, but perhaps it would be useful to you. Now there is a preferences, options for the table of contents. It basically lets you sort of look at the various patch sizes, whether you want to view certain things, and you can feel free to play around with that. Now for the options patches, you can actually control how patches look in the table of contents. So if you don't want to look at little squares in your table of contents, they have different shapes you can use. And if you don't want to see straight lines, you can have squiggly lines or zigzaggy lines. It's all a matter of sort of user preference. You're in charge, and you can make your ArcMap interface look however you would like it to. Now, the drawing order in the table of contents is very important because it draws from the bottom of the table of contents to the top. So if you have a large polygon with a solid fill, and you put that at the top of the table of contents, everything underneath it you won't be able to see. Now, when you add points, roads, and polygons all at the same time to ArcMap, ArcMap automatically puts them in an order that would allow you to see them. So you can see what I'm talking about in this slide here. So in the first screenshot on the left, we have roads and then boroughs, and you can see the roads. But if we change the drawing order and we put boroughs on top, it will block the roads. Now, within the properties for the layer, this is something that I may talk about in this particular lesson, but it will probably come up later. You can make a layer transparent so you can see through it. And I will try to demo that in my ArcGIS demo for you. Now, turning layers on and off is super simple. There's a little checkbox next to the layer that if you check it, it turns it on. If you uncheck it, it turns it off. Expanding layers, when you look at the table of contents, you will see these little plus signs next to your layers. And when you click the plus sign, it will allow you to see what the symbol looks like and what color it is. Then it will be a minus sign. So you can hide or show legends at will. There's also a way that you can, by going to the layers, I'll show you, you can hide all the legends or all the layers at the same time. This is where you might actually do that. So this is the table of contents. If you click on any data layer, you will see this drop-down menu. There's a lot of different options here. Some of the ones that we're going to look at are Open Attribute Table, and we're going to be going into the properties. So these are the two main ones to cover in this lesson, but there are quite a lot of others that will come up as you progress through our courses. If you select properties, you'll see this dialog box below, and I'm going to be talking about that and showing it to you in a little bit better detail during my live demo. Instead of right-clicking on the data layer and then scrolling your mouse down and hitting properties, you can also simply double-click on the data layer name in the table of contents, and it will automatically open up this properties dialog. At the top of the table of contents, you'll see the word layers. This is actually where you access the data frame properties. So if you right-click on the word layers or double-click on the word layers, this dialog will pop up. Now, at the very bottom, you'll see there's data frame properties, but notice you have some really cool options here. You can turn all your layers off at the same time, and you can expand or collapse the layers. Now, there'll be certain points when you're using the ArcMap interface. Let's say, for example, you added 20 or 30 independent raster images, and all of the legends are turned on for them. So it's pretty neat to basically come here and collapse all of those legends. That allows you to see the data. And I'll try to demonstrate that when I do my little demo. Now, when you go into the data frame properties, you'll see this dialog here. This is pretty useful dialogue. In fact, it is so useful, we have an entire lesson on data frame properties in this first course. So I'm not going to talk about it too much more right now. Now, at the top of the table of contents, the data frame is called layers. Now, Not 100% sure why ESRI does that because it really should be called data frame. And what's interesting is when you add a new data frame, it's called new data frame. So I think this is a little bit confusing to new users. The data layers are really these points, polygons, and roads that are shown below. Now, some of the data frame tools that are quite useful in the lower sort of left-hand portion of your ArcMap interface, there's a series of 4 buttons which we're trying to highlight here. The first button is what's called the data frame view, which is your main view, but you can also go to a layout view, which lets you see the map if you were to print it. Sort of like a what you see is what you get. We have a separate lesson in this course on how to make a map layout, so I'm not going to go a lot into layouts right now. We also have a refresh view. Every once in a blue moon, sometimes ESRI software will sort of lock up and it won't draw the map. And if you hit this refresh button, it will basically redraw the screen, and if there was a drawing problem, it will fix it. Now, if you have a lower quality graphics card or something like this might happen to you more often than if you have a high-end professional workstation. Now, pause drawing, this is a very useful tool. Let's say you added, maybe you're in the city of Baltimore and you added all of the address points for the entire city at one time, and it was taking a long time to draw. Well, you could hit this pause button, would pause a drawing. You can also hit the escape key on your keyboard and it will halt the drawing. So this can be useful, so you don't have to sit there and watch Esri draw millions of dots, which can take a couple minutes. Now, coordinates at the very lower right-hand part of your ArcMap interface, you will notice a set of numbers. As you move your mouse across the screen, these numbers will change. Basically, these numbers represent the coordinates of your exact mouse location on the map. Now, the numbers may not make a lot of sense. If you look at these, you'll go, wonder what those numbers mean. They're not in latitude and longitude unless your data frame projection is in basically WGS 1984. Again, this is why we have a separate lesson on data frame properties, and we'll go into some detail about how to figure out what these numbers mean. Now, when you select features using the Select Features tool, and you want to know how many were selected, back in the table of contents, if you recall, I mentioned the View Selected tab, and it would tell you the number of features that are selected. Now, there is a pop-up menu in the data frame, so anywhere inside the data frame where the map is, if you just right-click, this menu will pop up. It allows you another way to access the data frame properties and some other tools. Again, this falls back to my ESRIs trying to give you multiple ways to access the same information so you can customize your ArcMap user interface experience. Now, very important when you're working in ArcMap, you want to save your work. So when you add data to ArcMap, and let's say you change the colors and things like that, you're going to want to save your map document. Because say it's the end of the day, you're not finished with what you're doing, the next morning you know you're coming in, you don't have to redo everything that you did. So when you select the Save As option, then you can save your map document. And I'm going to review this briefly in our demo. Now, sometimes you might be in an organization where you're lucky enough to have ArcGIS version 10, but some of your coworkers have ArcGIS version 9. Now, if you create a map document in version 10, it will not open in version 9. So this can cause you a certain level of aggravation and frustration. Now, when you save a map document in the Save As type, you have an option to save a copy. And then you can pick what version of map document that you would like to make. So keep this in mind if you have a lot of users and not everyone's been upgraded to the latest version of the software. Now, very important to remember this because I think a lot of people just don't get this. When you save a map document or a .mxd file, what that document saves, it saves the settings you apply to the data. So is it, what color is it? How thick is the line? It saves where you were zoomed in on the data, and it saves the path to where your data is located. For example, your data is located on the C drive in the data folder. It doesn't save any of your data. So if someone says, hey, send me your map so I can take a look at it, and you just send them your map document or the .mxd file, and you don't send the actual data to go with it, they're not going to be able to see what you're doing. So keep that in mind, and hopefully you won't do this. Now, a big concern that some ArcMap users have is if someone saves a map document, and let's say it's your coworker, okay, and your coworker saves a map document and all the data is on a network server. But let's say that your coworker is logged into the network server as the X drive. Well, then you access the same map document on the server, but you have the drive mapped as the Z drive. Well, the relative path to where the data is will be broken. Now, there's a way you can keep this from happening, and which I'm going to show you. Now, in ArcMap, you have an option from the File pull-down menu to select Map Document Properties, and then there is a little option to store relative path names to data sources. So if you click that, as long as the, and this may sound a little confusing for a new user, but the sort of the hierarchical data folder structure, it won't matter whether it's the X or the Z, as long as the map document is relative to the data sources. Some of this may not make sense until it happens to you, but trust me, this is a very good box to check and will save you a lot of aggravation and frustration down the road. So that ends my brief introduction to ArcMap lecture. I hope you enjoyed the exercise. I encourage you to watch my live demo because as I'm sort of prowling through the ArcMap interface, I might say some things that I didn't say in this lecture, and you will have an option to really actually see me do it, which might prove to be more beneficial. Have a great day.